So today's video is going to be kind of 2 in 1. Earlier I was making a video response to Elsie's Hoots video called Televisual Life. But then as I was halfway through editing it, I realised another YouTuber called Dan Resler had also made a video on TV but on a slightly different subject. So this is going to be kind of those two put together. Both of their videos can be found below. So first off I'm going to start like Kaylee Hyde did in her video and name shows that I used to watch that have been cancelled. So to start off, it's going to have to be Stargate. I started watching at a really young age, I think I was about 8 or 9, and I've watched all the seasons, SG1, Atlantis, and then Universe, which is just finished there. And I think the reason I started watching it originally was because it was completely different to anything you would typically see on TV back then. As it was funny, obviously science fiction, but it had the actual scientific principles behind it was relatively true. Next would be X-Files. I'd completely recommend it if anyone hasn't seen it watching this video. Had an amazing storyline, well written, and in my opinion it's a lot better than the recent movies, the TV series that is. Of course we got Pokemon. It's not technically cancelled I don't think, but as I'm one of those people that only kind of original 151 I think it was, yeah, 151. So I don't really watch the new stuff. Then going out of sci-fi, we've got Friends. I never really watched it at the same time as most of my friends did growing up. It wasn't really a show that I liked that much, but I started watching it properly I think when I was about 13 or 14. Just because it was always repeated on TV in the UK, and I'm not sure about the States all around it, but yeah, that's the main reason I started watching it. I'm completely loving it. Now moving on to more recently cancelled shows would be House, I would say, just purely because I like Hugh Laurie. I think he's hilarious, and him in that role is just amazing. I can't imagine anyone else playing that role just as well as he did. Lie to Me was also another one of those shows I used to watch, which got cancelled I think at the beginning of last year. Only made 2 seasons. For anyone that hasn't seen it, it's about a guy called Cal Lightman, played by Tim Roth, who is able to tell if someone is lying or not by micro expressions in their face. He has a team of people like Foster, who is able to basically tell through speech and inflections in the voice and that kind of thing. Really good watch. Next up would be a show called The River. I don't actually know anyone else that watches this show, or I should say watch that show. It only finished at the beginning of this year. I think it was around May, sometime around then I think it was. For anyone that hasn't seen it, it's about a man called Dr. Emma Cole, who is played by Bruce Greenwood, who travels up and down the Amazon River making kind of wildlife documentaries. And he ends up going missing with his crew, and after 6 months the search is called off basically, until his wife gains funding from a TV company that I think they used to work with on the wildlife documentaries. But they gain funding and her and her son go on the river, and a lot of paranormal it's kind of Lost meets Paranormal Activity if anyone's ever seen those. It's kind of like that, but it's really good. And yeah, I've only had a single season made. The next show, I'm not really sure about the situation of it, whether it's cancelled or not, but it's called Terra Nova and it's made by Steven Spielberg. I wouldn't say it's the greatest show, but it's a definite worth watch. But yeah, I think it's on its 2nd season now, not too sure. But yeah, it's very good. Moving on to shows that are still on, my favourite would be Bones. I think originally I started watching it because I found the idea of the show really interesting, and because I have a passion for science, anything kind of like that I will watch. From the serial killer bit, and I think around the end of season 1 coming up to season 2 with the twisting, I'll not say too much about it because for those people that haven't seen it, but after that bit I was completely hooked. And for anyone that hasn't seen the Comic-Con videos from this year about Bones, they have said they're planning on making as many seasons as they possibly can while Fox still funds it, so fingers crossed we've got another couple of seasons left out of them yet. The next one would be Fringe, purely for the same reasons as Kaylee. I love a good twist on a TV show, which is why I like Bones from the beginning after that, as I've already discussed. Although we're coming on to the final season of Fringe, I'm kind of happy in the fact that they've been able to get a final season to be made. purely for the fact I don't like when series of programs just cut mid-flow and they don't have an ending of the story, which I'm hoping they kind of do. The next TV show I'm going to mention is Game of Thrones. I know Kaylee said she didn't like that. I can't remember if she said she didn't like the TV show or the books. Personally, I read all the books first, all 5 of them, and I'm waiting on the 6th to be written or released. I'm not sure if it's been written yet, but I found the books better than the TV shows, which is to be expected for, I suppose, because the TV shows have to leave out quite a bit because they could never fit in as much detail as they could in a book. But yeah, I think the books are just slightly a bit better, and maybe that's why Kaylee doesn't like the TV show. I'm not too sure, because they do leave quite a bit of the integral story in parts. Not say too much for people who haven't read the book or watched the TV series, but yeah, there's bits and pieces left out that would make it, which would make it maybe a bit more compelling. Next, we have a relatively new TV show in the UK called Grimm. For anyone that hasn't seen it, it's just finished its 1st season, and it's based on that the creatures and monsters from the Grimm fairy tales are actually real, and the brother Grimms were the first people to profile them in the stories, which is why we know of them. In my opinion, it's a really good show, and I can't wait to see where the writers go with the storyline. The next TV show would be something called Falling Skies. It's produced by Robert Roda and Steven Spielberg, and for anyone that hasn't seen it, it's based 6 months in the future after an alien invasion occurs, where the main character, Tom Mason, aka Noah Wild, joins the 2nd Massachusetts, which is a rebel fighting group, and they fight the invasion basically. It's currently playing its 2nd season in the UK, and I would very much recommend it to anyone that hasn't seen it. Finally, there's Doctor Who, with David Tennant being my favourite Doctor, although that said, I do still like Matt Smith and I still watch his episodes. As far as Torchwood goes, I prefer the earlier seasons, 1 and 2, just because they had more characters in it, and I thought that helped the storyline a bit better, whereas now there's only, well, there's the American bit. I'm not sure what's going on with that anymore, but before that, where they just had 3 main characters, I didn't like it as much. My favourite episode is when it shows you Captain Jack Harkness, aka John Barrowman, in different time periods, still doing the same job. I think it goes back to Queen Victoria, and it goes further back than I think. I can't remember the name of the episode, but it's definitely one of my top favourites. Okay, the next part of this video is the response to Dan Resler. I just wanted to say first off, I completely agree with the points he made in his video called Watch More TV. For anyone that hasn't seen Dan's video, he basically explains how he doesn't agree with Ray Bradbury's views on technology in the book Fahrenheit 451. My view is basically the same as Dan's, in that technology hasn't made us less intelligent as a species, but has provided a new way to spark our creativity, which without, I think, our species' capabilities at least would be severely reduced. For example, what is technology? The definition is scientific application used for practical purposes, although I can see how some technology would make some people lazier than they would be without it. To make it sound like people have to choose between books if they want to be intelligent or TV sounds crazy to me. Forget about intelligence for a minute. Without TV, an entire media would be lost. And of course there's books, but pictures could never show a greater insight towards a culture or a place without an individual actually travelling there. The same as how TV can sometimes provide a better depth of character over a book. Television, just like books, allows people to widen their knowledge to millions. So I say, how can that be a bad thing? The same as how, then it would be a relative, next we have a relatively, try my tea again. Coffee, why do I keep saying tea?